Picture this. You're at a party, surrounded by people you barely know. Your friend, the host, asks you to entertain the guests while they step out for a moment. You agree, even though you'd rather be anywhere else. You see, it's scenarios like these that often put us in a pickle. The desire to keep everyone around us happy, the subtle fear of letting someone down, or the dread of confrontation. You've been asked to put on a show, but your heart's pounding like a racehorse. You feel the discomfort creeping up your spine, yet you nod and plaster that enthusiastic smile on your face. It's like a performance, a dance you didn't sign up for but find yourself in the middle of, all to keep the peace, to avoid upsetting anyone. This eagerness to please, this need to be the yes person, can lead to situations that make us uncomfortable or uneasy. And that's what being a people pleaser can feel like. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? That's because you, my friend, might be a people pleaser. Being a people pleaser might seem like a good thing on the surface. After all, who doesn't want to be liked? But there's a dark side to it. Imagine being constantly on a treadmill, running to keep up with everyone's expectations. That's the life of a people pleaser. They're constantly under stress, trying to meet others' demands, often at the cost of their own needs and desires. This constant pressure can lead to burnout, a state of emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion caused by prolonged stress. And it's not a pretty picture. Think about it, you're always saying yes, even when you want to say no. You're always agreeing, even when you want to disagree. You're always doing, even when you want to rest. It's a constant cycle of giving, giving, and giving, with little or no thought for receiving. But why does this happen? Why do we feel this compulsive need to please others? Well, at the root of it, it's about validation. We want to be liked, accepted, and appreciated. And so, we go out of our way to make others happy, often at our own expense. However, this constant striving to meet others' expectations can have serious psychological effects. It can lead to feelings of resentment as you're constantly putting others before yourself. It can lead to feelings of inadequacy as you're constantly trying to measure up to an impossible standard. And it can lead to feelings of emptiness as you're constantly seeking validation from outside rather than from within. But here's the kicker. The more you try to please others, the less you please yourself. And the less you please yourself, the less satisfied you are with your life. It's a vicious cycle, one that's hard to break. But there's a light at the end of this tunnel, and it starts with understanding why we fall into this trap in the first place. So, why do we find ourselves trying to please others, even when it's at our own expense? The answer lies deep within our psyche. Diving into the world of psychology, we find a multitude of reasons why we tend to bend over backwards for others. One of the main culprits? The innate need for approval. Since the dawn of humanity, we've been social creatures, relying on each other for survival. Over time, this need for social acceptance has evolved into a desire for approval. When we please others, we often receive positive feedback reinforcing this behavior. This approval addiction can be so potent that we often ignore our own needs in the process. We put on a mask, playing characters that we think others will like, often losing sight of who we truly are. Next up, the fear of rejection. It's a powerful emotion that can drive us to go to great lengths to avoid being ostracized. We fear the sting of rejection so much that we'd rather suppress our own desires than risk being cast aside. You could say it's a form of self-preservation, albeit a misguided one. Then there's the desire to be liked. Much like the need for approval, wanting to be liked is a natural human instinct. We crave social connections and the sense of belonging they bring. And so, we try to mold ourselves into what we think others want. We become chameleons, changing our colors to fit in with the crowd, often at the cost of our authenticity. Lastly, the avoidance of conflict. Nobody likes confrontation. It's uncomfortable and often messy. So, to keep the peace, we might find ourselves agreeing to things we don't actually agree with, just to avoid potential discord. But knowing why we do it isn't enough. We need to know how to stop. And that, dear listeners, is the journey we'll embark on next. So stay with us as we delve deeper into the world of people-pleasing and, more importantly, how to break free from its shackles. Ready for the big reveal? The ultimate solution to stop people-pleasing isn't as complicated as you might think. It's all about setting boundaries, learning to say no, and prioritizing self-care. First, let's talk about boundaries. These are the limits we place on our interactions with others. It's about knowing what you're comfortable with and what you're not, and making that clear. It's about standing your ground when someone is asking too much of you. Remember, it's not being selfish, It's being self-respectful. Next up is the power of no. It's a small word, but it carries a big punch. We often feel obligated to say yes out of fear of disappointing others, but every yes we give away is a piece of ourselves we're giving up. Start reclaiming your time, your energy, yourself by learning to say no. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but with practice, it gets easier. And finally, self-care. This isn't just about bubble baths and spa days, although those are nice too. It's about taking care of your physical, emotional, and mental well-being. It's about doing things that make you happy, that replenish your energy, that make you feel good about yourself. When you prioritize self-care, you're sending a message to yourself and others that you matter, that you're important. But here's the kicker. All these practical solutions, they're great, but they're not enough on their own. They need to be underpinned by a solid foundation of self-love and self-respect. You need to believe that you're worthy of respect, of love, of care. You need to believe that your needs, your feelings, your desires, they matter. And when you start believing that, truly believing it, that's when you'll start to break free from the shackles of people-pleasing. But the most important truth of all, that's what we're about to uncover. Here it is, the moment you've been waiting for. The ultimate truth to stop people-pleasing once and for all. It's not about the external approval you've been seeking, but rather the internal approval you've been neglecting. The ultimate truth is this. The validation you crave from others is the very validation you need to give yourself. You see, we often look outward for acceptance when we should be looking inward. It's about self-approval, self-love, and self-acceptance. It's about recognizing your worth and value, even if others don't. It's about standing up for yourself. Even if it means standing alone, it's about saying no when you want to say no, and yes when you want to say yes, without the fear of judgment or rejection. So next time you find yourself saying yes when you want to say no, remember this. You are enough, just as you are. And that's something worth celebrating.